Okay, so it is day 76 of going through my old journal. And the quote for today is, let me see. Happiness is a perfume you cannot pour on others without getting some on yourself. It says, what is your definition of happiness and what was the happiest moment in your life so far? So again, if you're following along, just pause the video for a minute and think about what your thoughts are on this question. And here's what I wrote. So let's see. Happiness. What's strange is that when I think back at times that I felt happy, like times when I've been with friends, going out, laughing, having a good time, I feel like that girl was pretty dumb and naive. Doing things to get attention. I used to see sorority girls going out at night, laughing and acting stupid and immature. So this was later on. So like, yeah, so when I was young, I would go out and like have fun and just feel like I was having like a great time. And then when I got older and I was working at the university, there'd be sometimes I was working late at night and I would see all these sorority girls just like getting drunk and acting stupid, and it kind of annoyed me because, well, they would take up all my parking spots and get in my way and stuff like that, and they were kind of rude. But so I would find myself starting to get annoyed with them, but then I would remember that I acted that way at one time, and during that time I felt happy. So I would feel myself starting to get kind of annoyed, and then I would just be like, you know what, stop it, they're just having fun. They're not thinking about, like how they look to other people or if they're making good decisions or, whatever. They're having a good time. I did similar things at one point in my life. And so, I try to tell myself, I cut young people some slack. I was like, so yeah, so I said, so I cut them some slack, but I also feel a sense of embarrassment from recognizing how I must have looked to others in the past. Because I see them and I think to about myself, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, like that I acted like this when I was younger. But I said, in recent years, I felt some happiness, but the feeling doesn't seem as strong as it used to be. Like, yeah, I think I'm just like, as I've gotten older, I've had so many experiences, like I'm not having as many new experiences, I think. And so like that feeling of like newness, because that's what drives me, is like curiosity and having like new experiences, I guess. And I don't have that as much anymore. And so I don't really feel like that overwhelming sense of like happiness. I said, I also experience a lot more low feelings than I used to as well. In the past, I was very rarely unhappy, so my moods would essentially go from neutral and up. These days, they tend to swing on both sides, with my down days sometimes being really down. What makes me happy is accomplishment, I think. Lately, I don't feel like I've been accomplishing much in my life. Maybe I'll accomplish more, or maybe I can change what makes me happy. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, happiness is something kind of weird to think about. And it's like a lot of people will say, like, oh, my goal in life is to be happy. And then, if you think about like what makes you happy, like what does make you happy? And it's just kind of hard. For me, it's kind of hard to put into words because everything is so inconsistent for me that there's not like things that consistently make me happy. And I kind of wish that I had that. Like some people have that. Like some people just have like music that they can listen to that'll make them happy. And it does to some extent for me. Like sometimes I can hear a song and it will put me in a better mood, but like like I said, not as dramatically as like it seemed like things used to in the past. And like, you know, for some people, they're into certain hobbies or certain things, and I just have trouble like sticking to any hobby or keeping my attention on something for very long, you know, that makes me happy. So, but at the same time, like I'm not always like, there's some people that like get that feeling that they're down and they go and like search out like ways to be happy, and I think that's, you know, that gets some people in trouble. Like I think maybe some people like me like experience that happiness, that newness of like going out and meeting people at a young age, and then they don't get that same feeling of happiness, and then that's where you see kind of like the older guys mostly, but you know, men and women at the bars. That, and I remember when I was younger, I would come across some of the older people at the bars, and I remember like looking back now, like I could sense this like negative like energy, this unhappiness with some of them. And now I kind of understand why. And I think maybe they were unhappy, but they were trying to find a way to find happiness through like going out and doing the things that used to make them happy. And it just didn't work. It wasn't working the way it used to, but they didn't know what else to do, so they were still going. I remember in particular, I was out at the club. I was probably in my early 20s, and I must have been like 21. And I remember going in the bathroom, and there was this girl, and I just like sensed this like sad energy from her. And I don't know, like I don't normally talk to random people in the bathroom, but somehow like she started talking to me, and I found out that it was her like 10-year high school reunion, so she must have been like 28, but she seemed quite a bit older than me. And she just seemed so down, and I want to say she even said something of like just enjoy life while you can, or something like that. And I was just like, wow, she's having a rough time right now. And I remember there was another woman in particular. She was probably around that same age or early 30s, and I was on a ski trip, and it was my first time going skiing. Skiing was something like I never thought I would do in my life, because it's nothing that my parents had ever done or seemed interested in doing. But the group I was with, this group of guys that were in a lot of my classes at school, they had someone like drop out of their ski trip, and I was available to go. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go. And everything was just like new and exciting and, you know, fun for me. And I ended up being on a ski lift with this one lady, because the guys were off doing their thing. I was like new, and I'm like, I'll do my own thing because I'm not very good. And I took like some ski classes by myself, and I was riding the lift with this woman. And again, I just had that feeling of her just being like sad. And that she had said that she was like there on a work trip or something, and she'd worked for some sort of like hedge fund firm or something like that. And this was before I'd gotten into economics, so I didn't really know anything about that industry or whatever. But I don't know, something about her energy just kind of has stuck with me over all these years, because I mean, that was over 10 years ago now. And yeah, and I'm just thinking like, we're here, we're in Colorado, we're skiing. Like why is she so unhappy? Like I just didn't get it. And yeah, I felt like new experiences for me brought me a lot of happiness back in the day, and I just haven't had a lot of new experiences lately. And I'm starting to like find more happiness in kind of like more mundane things now. Like sometimes me and my roommate will like just go outside on our break, you know, because we both work from home now. And he's just like, we just are living in a paradise. Like, this is just so great to just be able to, you know, come outside, because he had previously worked in a factory where everything was so structured, and you had such a short time for breaks, and you didn't have any control over what you're doing with your life, and he wasn't really making that much money. And, you know, I'd worked a corporate job before where, you know, again, you'd have to request, you know, these days off, and my job now is a little bit more lenient in terms of that stuff, and especially working from home, you know, I have quite a bit of freedom. And so for a while that was like a burden to me because I wasn't good at managing my own time very well and having like all that freedom, and I hated that about myself. Like I wanted to be one of those that was self-motivated and could get it together, and so I was just under a lot of anxiety because I felt like I wasn't doing what I needed to do. And even though I was able to like take breaks when I wanted and you know, just go and relax in my yard and things like that, like I felt so much anxiety because I was procrastinating and not getting as much done as I thought I could. But now that I know I've been talking about this a lot because I really feel like things are starting to come together to where I am being more efficient at work and I am getting the things done that I need to get done. And I don't have this like, just like cloud over my head of like all of this responsibility and all these things that I have to do, and I'm getting it done. And so I am able to kind of like enjoy it. And I am like, yeah, just kind of enjoying the more mundane things, just going outside and hanging out with my cats. And like I said, it's not like that same like shooting up level of like whatever dopamine I would get from like seeing something new and being really excited about something, but it's a good level of like just feeling really good. And I think when I wrote this I said accomplishing things makes me feel good because in the past, you know, if I had something that I needed to get done, and still to this day I would say like getting that happiness feeling is like whenever I have a huge project and it's finally finished and I just get, it's more like relief, but a happy relief. Like I feel so good that like whatever it is I've been working on is done. And lately that's been like the best feeling, is just finishing things. But yeah, I don't know, like where I find happiness has kind of evolved throughout my life. And so I assume it'll probably keep happening for me, but right now at least I feel pretty good just because I don't have like anxiety hanging over me as much anymore. So yeah, but it's just hard to pinpoint like, oh, I'm gonna do this and this is gonna make me so happy. And it's just not the same as it was anymore. And I don't know, I don't know this for sure, but I kind of get the impression that my sister is maybe starting to go through that phase that I went through a while back, that like I was trying a lot of things that I thought would make me happy, and then when I would do them, they were just like, I was kind of let down by, you know, I thought it would give me this feeling of happiness and it didn't. Like one time I went on like this trip by myself and I thought, you know, I want to be independent, I want to go travel and I'm going to go do this and that, and it just didn't have like the same feeling as I thought it would have. And I actually ended up making me feel like super, made me feel worse actually. And I don't know, I'm not sure if she's feeling that way, but I kind of got that impression like she had planned a few things for us to do when I went to go visit her a while back. And I don't know, I could be reading everything wrong, but I got the feeling in a few instances that like she had this idea in her head of like how these things were gonna go, and then maybe they didn't just like turn out exactly how she expected them to. Like, I don't know. And I think I'm maybe just projecting that because that's happened to me before. And that's why I don't really like to plan things as much anymore. Like, I don't like to go into things having expectations anymore, because there's been times that like I've planned things, and I think I've talked about this before, like in terms of traveling when I was younger. I think part of the reason I enjoyed it was because it was just like I left it just kind of up to chance. I'd be like, all right, I'm going here, but I don't know what I'm gonna do. Or like I was with a group that all the things were planned, and so I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna roll with it. But then whenever I was like trying to plan vacations with other people, sometimes, you know, like I would over plan, and then if things, you know, and I would have this expectation in my head of like how things were gonna go, and then, you know, sometimes they don't go that way, and then you're just kind of like let down a little bit. So I try not to do that anymore. I try to just kind of just be open to whatever and not have very many expectations on how things are going to turn out. So I think that helps with not feeling disappointed. But yeah, I don't really know exactly what makes me happy. Right now, what makes me happy is not being stressed. And so I want to try to keep that up as long as I can, at least until I finish my PhD. And then, yeah, just try to live my life as kind of stress-free as possible for the rest of my life if I can. I mean, I think a little bit of stress is maybe good in some situations, but yeah, I don't know. But right now I feel pretty happy, but I can't really explain like one thing that's making me happy. I just feel kind of like secure, I guess. So, but who knows? With everything that's going on in the world, that could be upended at any time. So I probably need to like really savor this time and just be grateful that I am living a fairly secure life right now and, you know, not struggling too much. But anyway, yeah. Oh my gosh, these are getting really long. I don't know how I'm talking so long. I'll just end that there, and I'll be back tomorrow with day 77. Looks like that one's about communication, which should be an interesting one for me in particular. So I'll be back tomorrow.